Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritually Boujee Astrology, and we're going to take a look at the astrological transits of March 24th to March 30th. Now, before we get into any parts of those transits, I want to do a couple quick little reminders. One, this is the last full week of March. That means this is the last full week to book your one-on-one sessions with me at the discounted rate. An hour-long session is normally $50. They have been reduced down to $35. A 90-minute session with me is normally $70, and it has been reduced down to 30. I'm sorry, 50. Sorry, 50. $50. Now, all you have to do is go to the website www.thespirituallyboujee.com. Go to astrological consultations. The very first one says one-on-ones. And it's got a special big note there. It says on discount till March 31st. March 31st is next Monday. This is the final full week to book with me at the discounted rate. Do not miss out on that because I'm not running a special in April, guys. Everything will be full price. It's not that my prices are expensive. I know that there are astrologers out there that are 10 times my pricing, but my focus has always been if I focus on the people and taking care of them the right way, money comes on its own. So don't focus on that. However, whenever the energies are crazy, I run specials and y'all know that. So if you're wanting to take advantage of the discounted rate, you better do it. This is your final reminders. This one and then the new moon one. I'll do a reminder there too. That's why I was saying it that way. Okay. Okay. Now, other thing that I need to remind everybody of. Next weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I will be in Conway, Arkansas for the I cannot talk right now, the Enchanted Metaphysical Fair that is going on. And I've seen so much stuff that's been going on behind the scenes. This is going to be a huge event. It's got bands, it's got food, it's got cosplay, it's got this little game for like a crow's game where you go and exchange different gyms with different vendors. You can, of course, get readings from people like me. There are going to be other people there. It is a huge event. Everything I've seen behind the scenes, it is crazy. It's going to be so much fun. It is a 3-day event. I will be there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you are an Arkansas listener, take your butt to Conway. Come see me and also come see this really fun event. I'm super excited for this, and I think a lot of people are really going to enjoy it. And I'm probably going to do some extra like TikToks and YouTube shorts and stuff like that so people can actually see what's going on because I'm super excited for this event. And I think a lot of you guys, if you are able to join, are going to enjoy it as well. Now, getting over that, moving past that, there's your little things going on. Now, let's focus on this week. This week for so many people is going to feel surreal. It's going to have an intensity to it. It's going to have a fueling to it. And it is almost like we're piercing through the veil this week and how it takes us into the month of April. Because one of the things I keep saying about April, especially the second half of April, is that is going to be our new normal. New normal, new routines, new ways of doing things. But for us to understand what we're stepping into, I got to be clear about something. For a lot of us, whatever we start to encompass this week, whatever starts to launch this week, and it's more the end of the week going into the first part of next week. And there's multitude of reasons why it'll make sense as I go into the transits here in a minute. So much of this vibration, for some people, it is months in the making. For others, it is 2 years in the making. And that's not a joke. And the main reason why is because what's going to happen again at the end of the week. 2 big vibrations. One, we're going to have our final Aries eclipse closing out the axis tied to what the North Node in Aries was meant to give us. 2, one of the things I've said multiple times now is that I feel like everything about the Aries vibration and all the setup energy of the eclipses, the Venus retrograde, the Mercury retrograde, has all been preparing us for Neptune going into Aries. Oh, yeah. That starts next weekend. Well, this coming weekend. On the 30th, like day 1 is Sunday. And I got a lot of opinions about it. And if you guys have heard that Meditative Rant video, like I've told you some of them, and I do mean some. I got some other ones I ain't talked about yet. There's a lot in this vibration. But again, for so many people, because that eclipse energy and how that's all speaking into it, for some people, it is weeks to months in the making. For others, it is 2 years in the making. And I feel like I fall into the 2 year category. I'm going to be honest about that. 2 years ago, like right before that first Aries eclipse, about a month before, is whenever I first started doing this podcast. And I did not do this. How do I want to say this? I did not do this with a certain goal in mind. My intuition told me, like, the month of March, this is back in 2023, head down, mouth shut. But I'm like, but the other part of me is like, I still got to help people. So the only thing that made sense was, let's start doing the podcast. And that did kind of correspond, like, right as Saturn was going into Pisces and a couple other things. Like, there's a lot of things going on right at that time frame. But what really spoke to me was like, start doing this. And now I'm moving to the point that I'm actually going out and I'm doing, these events, and I'm starting to meet with people in person. So not only am I doing this stuff one-on-one and individual stuff over Zooms with people, like, I'm going out into the world. Making it sound like so mystical. It's not. But I'm going out into the world, and not just in my comfort zones. I'm going out to unfamiliar places. So I'm using myself as an example. And I want you guys to think about what has changed for you since the spring of 2023. Because so much of the vibration, again, speaks to leading us into the showcase vibration of what we're going into next. Something about April speaks to a new normal, new parts of our routine, new ways of doing things. But it is these final days of March that set the stage for that. And so many of you guys have confirmed some of the things that I have said to you before. Like, we've had those unexpected changes. We've had the stuff in our health. We've had these little delays. We've had these little tests in our patience, tests in our process, tests in the frustration. You've had those tests. Like, it's so crazy to me, because sometimes you guys only see the comments. You don't realize how many people, because you're spoiled, and I love you. It's okay. I'm not bitching. You DM me or you email me what's been going on, because you don't want everybody to know your business, which is perfectly fine with your Scorpio placements. It's just one of those things that I think it's hilarious, because you guys, whenever it comes to the public stuff, you see a small fraction of what I hear and encompass in the feedback that I get from people. And it's fun yet crazy at the same time. Because sometimes when I'm talking to myself in this camera, I've got to be honest, like, I feel like a crazy person, because from my perspective, I'm literally just looking at a reflection of myself. But whenever you guys start to hear what's coming out and how it manifests for all of you in so many different ways, yet it's still the same transit, you can't deny how powerful this energy is when you start to understand how to learn in alignment with it. Some of us, whatever we do this week, taking us into April, it is us falling into alignment. It's a fueled belief system taking us forward and empowering us and telling us that we can take on this challenge and we can do this new hustle mentality, for those that listen to my meditative rant video, that we can go in this new direction, that we can level ourselves up and level our business up and take something up a notch, truly and really, by just stepping out of our comfort zone. And once we step out, and once we do the thing, whatever it is, and we take on that experience, the result is undeniable, which takes me to Neptune and Aries with beliefs. Now, however, I got to play devil's advocate. And I do not believe everything about Neptune and Aries is going to be fueled by beliefs, per se, not spiritual beliefs. Some of what gets fueled next, going into April, can still happen as a part of this week. Just to be clear, if you listen to that meditative rant video, there's a couple times that I brought up, like, the lies, fraud, the deception, and how Neptune showcased different ways of doing that, especially like if you listen to the first half. For some people, the reaction and the actions that follow through and start to ramp up at the end of this week, going into next week. So therefore going into April is going to be fueled by lies, fraud, deception, misguided information. Some of you will be dealing with the final effects of some deep seated vibration that you're going to be taking forward as a new truth. If you know anything about history, sometimes if the myth is more believable than the truth, you print the lie. That's a real factor that has been spoken about in the past, especially like if you compare it to like the Old West and stuff like that. You print the myth, you print the lie. You believe what everyone else believes, even if some part of you knows it's not true. Some part of what is going to happen next, whether it is this week, human effect, or April, obviously, whatever it is, it can be based off of the lies, the fraud, and the deception. And even the lies, the fraud, and deception can fuel a belief system and can fuel some type of empowered reaction. Please note how I keep saying empowered reaction. And whatever we're stepping into has got to be something very, very new, even if it is 2 years in the making. Now, why am I saying all that? I want to go down and put a little emphasis now on those Aries eclipses and how it's setting the stage for a lot of this. The first eclipse happened in April of 2023. It was like April 19th. Because 2 days later, we had a Mercury retrograde. And I remember 420, ironically enough, how surreal that vibration felt. And I was like, oh, this is going to get real intense real fast. And that Mercury retrograde started on the 21st. It was just crazy to my head. And it was. And what it showed in the underbelly and all that, like the whole shift in plants, the whole shift in direction that started right in that vibration. But not everybody stays as in tune with the energy as one would hope. So some people are not going to connect one dot to the next the way that I do. But I see the patterns and I try to emphasize them. That first eclipse was April 19th of 2023. It was at 29 degrees of Aries. The North Node was roughly around 4 or 5 degrees of Taurus. And then we had a switch up. The North Node went into Aries. And one of the things I said about the entirety of the North Node in Aries, and I started to say this at the beginning, so I might have to link some really old videos to be able to explain why I'm saying this part next. I said at the very beginning of the North Node in Aries, South Node in Libra, that we would not understand the full encompassing of our gains because what was going to be happening to Mars over the first 2/3 of that vibration. We didn't start to see the rampant uptick of gains until summer. Heard me gripe about that a couple times. There's been positives, there's been negatives. Either way, Mars went through a rebirth. Now, some of you never heard that concept before. But Mars hitting a conjunction to the sun is not like the other outer planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Pluto, Chiron. They have one conjunction to the sun every year. Venus can have 1 to 2 a year, depending on her layout. We're not getting into all that. Mercury gets multiple because it's Mercury. Mars is different. 1 year we get a Mars rebirth. The next year we get a Mars retrograde. Obviously, you can see we just wrapped up a Mars retrograde year. But before then, we had a Mars rebirth. And this was very tightly in that it happened in Scorpio. And what I was putting into emphasis back then is like, look, Mars is reshaping, rebuilding, doing something. And it's bringing stuff that's gone on behind the scenes in secret that nobody knows. And it's forcing it to the front. It's forcing it out. But what we force out will not have gains until Mars is no longer being encompassed and burnt up by the sun. And that takes months. And that's why in a lot of ways, again, we didn't start to see the gains until the second eclipse, which happened on April 8th. And for a lot of people, that was the big spectacle eclipse. It was going through right through the central US, and people were like coming from both sides and all over just to come to the center so they could watch the totality. I like to call that one the spectacle eclipse, just to be clear. And that one was a very key, important one because that was the eclipse while the North Node was there. But now we're moving into this third and final one. And the North Node has moved signs. So this is another out of sign eclipse like the first one. However, that North Node has moved on into a new sign. This is the one that instigates and levels up so much of the vibration that is 2 years in the making. And then one of the things that when it comes to Neptune's vibration that we can count on is a little bit of nostalgia. I don't talk about that very often, but it's true. Imagination, nostalgia, things along these lines. One of the things that Mercury retrogrades are super good at doing is bringing back old ideas, old concepts, old ways of thinking. And if you think of it that way, it's like, well, that's kind of a nostalgia element too. And there's going to be a nostalgic vibe for some people this week, fueling what starts to take shape. That old idea of being encompassed and being brought to the surface, being brought forward, but in a new way. And it can launch something. And the launching really, it is that latter half of the week. And some of us, we won't even fully understand what we're feeling in that launch vibration until we get into the actual next week. Because I got to be honest, like right as soon as Neptune changes signs, there's no other big transits going on. So for some people, you're only going to feel the internal shift, but not necessarily have an external footprint to it quite yet. You will, but it won't be official. And there is a very big push whenever it comes to pushing and awakening. And that's going to make more sense as we go into that first week of April. And the push is not going to be as clear for everyone as I would like. For some people, we're just going to have this internal click over these next few weeks that it's time to do this. It's time to change something. It's time to do something spontaneous. It's time. It's finally time to grab that old idea, that old concept of something we did long ago and really launch it forward. That thing we've been sitting on for so long and really launching it forward. And we're going to feel, one, that now we have the time to nurture it. Now, why do I say that? Because of the condition of Mars. He's no longer retrograde. He's direct. He's moving again. He's still in his shadow, post-shadow phase. That means he's going over areas of the sky that he disrupted things before. But he's in Cancer. That's a sign of nurturing. So whatever we are launching, whatever we're stepping into, whatever vibration we're going to be working with, we feel capable of nurturing it. So if you have had an old idea come back around, an old way of thinking, an old business, but with a new flair, there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of capability. There's a lot of potential. And given how many planets are going to be playing on, for many of us, there's going to be a lot of moving parts and a lot of people involved. And I don't mean this in that like big masses kind of way. It's more along the line of like, some of us are going to be finally connecting an old idea to the right players, or we're connecting to the right players, but we're changing the idea. We're bringing something new to the table. And that's a part of the shift. And I got to be honest, I don't feel like this Mercury retrograde has been as intense as Venus. I think she's still taking a lot of the brunt of everything. But I think we're going to see the dynamic between the two for just a swift moment right before the eclipse, specifically Friday. And I got reasons why I'm saying that. But there is so many intricate levels and intricate parts of this energy that speaks to more than one thing going on, more than one time frame being brought back around, more than one person being brought back through, more than one idea. And there's so much complexity, yet still, it also feels so timely. And time is going to be a big element. In some ways, where it feels like we're launching into a new time frame. We're jumping time, so to speak. The collective, not just one person, the collective. And where we land as we go into April is really going to put a lot of things into perspective. Now, for some of us, we need to close some things out, finally make some final decisions to walk away and close some things out. And I don't necessarily feel like that is all going to really be a part of the new moon. I think that's going to be a part of like the first 2 weeks of April, because we finally feel confident in our beliefs, confident in our desires to do something that we've wanted to do for a really long time. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. And you're just like, yeah, I got a date. I got stuff going on. I got something I'm about to launch. I'm about to do this new thing. I'm about to take something forward. I'm about to make a change. You already know what you're dealing with. We're right on time. For others, you still have no clue because you're struggling with part of this. And again, I am very hopeful. I'm hopeful for the dynamic. I'm hopeful for the vibration. I'm hopeful for the drive and the ambition and the desire and all those things that are coming through. But in other ways, some of what is going to come through will have a health impact. And I'm not fond of that because Neptune, whenever he impacts the health, he's not always clear. And it's like we're gonna see these people, and I want to bring this up now before I get into all the dates, because I have so many of you that when I started to say back in January, all of these planets in their detriment, doing the retrograde, spinning and stewing and stirring and staying in one spot. So many of you are like, oh my God, it hit. And I mean, there's over 100 that you've confirmed it. I'm not even joking when I say that next part. And for some of us, whatever happens when we make these next two conjunctions to Neptune this week, because we're going to have two. Right before Neptune goes into Aries, we're going to have two. We're going to have Venus and we're going to have Mercury. That right there could also lead to new levels of treatment. But it could also lead to that whole level of surreal in your reality of something not working out the way that we thought. There's a multitude of ways that can come through. If we are dealing with people that are having the health issues, I don't like this week in that regard. But in other ways, I'm hopeful. My problem with Neptune is like he gives the most crazy infections or oddball energies that nobody's ever heard of before coming through all of a sudden whenever he gets activated. And that's why it's so hard to pinpoint. Some of you've had your, I'm rambling now. I'm so sorry. Intuition has taken over. But some of you have had your natal charts read and you have like Neptune in your 6th house of health. And I just go ahead and ask you, like, I don't even try. I'm like, okay, what is the weird health thing that nobody can explain to you? And they're like, oh, well, it's this. Like, okay. I don't even try anymore. It's just crazy whenever Neptune's involved. But I also know that whatever we're stepping into next, whatever we're going into next, again, speaks to what our new normal is going to be. And for some people, that new normal is going to be regular treatments of something. For others, it is going to be realizing that some of those people will not be moving forward with us. And that is a hard pill to swallow. And I'm being very realistic about that from the beginning. We're still in the intro. So I said what I said. Sorry for it. But you come to me for a reason. So there's that. Let's get into the week. Let's get into the transits. Let's get into Monday. All right. Monday, March 24th. The moon is still in Capricorn at this time. And one of the things that is going on is actually how we ended last week's transit. And that is the moon's trine to Uranus. This started roughly around 11:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And it is going to be felt the most exact between late Sunday evening and early Sunday morning. Now, the moon in Saturn sign, it is in an earth sign. Uranus is in an earth sign. There could be something like something productive that we need to do unexpectedly. Sometimes you have to do something late at night because we have to. I'm going to use weather for just an example because you guys have heard me talk about like how bad our windstorms have been here in Oklahoma. The fence blew down. Not mine. I'm being clear. Just using this as an example. Think of it this way, like something solid, tangible, the fence blows down and you have to go out in the middle of the night and try to pick the fence back up so your animals don't get out of the gate, out of the fence, out of the yard, wherever. Think of that. An unexpected, tangible, unexpected, grounded, unexpected situation that requires production. That's this type of thing. Now, not everybody's going to have their fence blow down. It could be unexpected communication that tells you have to do something first thing in the morning, whether you like to do it or not. That can be something here. It's like you get an email from the boss on Sunday night. You're not used to getting an email on Sunday night, but it tells you, hey, we need to meet first thing tomorrow morning. Crap. Now, here's the deal. As we go through Monday, we're going to be going into a Mercury cazimi. It's not exact right here. It's not going to go exact until the afternoon. But for a lot of people, whatever starts to happen when Monday really starts to take shape, there is something that gets revealed. There's something that comes to light. There's a decision that is getting made. There's communication that's getting made. And anywhere over the case of Monday, any part of the day, including 12:30 at night, can lead into whatever is becoming clear, wherever the clarity is going to be. Okay, so we're going to keep this going. The next thing that's going to happen is between 9 and 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to go through a sextile with Neptune. So there we go. We're just before it goes exact closer to the 10 a.m. mark, but here's the moon, 29 degrees, 29 minutes. Here's Neptune, 29 degrees, 46 minutes. Neptune is changing signs at the end of the week, but we also have this Mercury cazimi coming through. Some of you are going to go to the office first thing in the morning and you're expecting the boss to be sitting there waiting for you, but it's like they've had a delay. They haven't showed up. They're not immediately there. So you talk to your work buddy. Hey, have you heard about, do you know anything about? I don't know anything about nothing. I didn't get an email. I don't know what you're talking about. And there can be like trying to get clear about something, but there's a little wave of confusion. There's something we don't necessarily know. There's something we don't necessarily know what to do with. There's a little bit of like haziness or confusion. For some people, there could be nostalgia that, again, like you come into the office and it's like the person that's waiting for you is not who you expected, but it's like running into an old coworker from a couple years ago going, what are you doing here? Oh, I got a job offer. I got something like this. And again, there could be something that either speaks to nostalgia or confusion of what is going on right here. And it can lead into part of where we're about to have changes because this week has some big surreal like changes. Okay. Now, at 10:25 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to go into Capricorn. I'm sorry, Capricorn just came out of Capricorn. It's going to go into Aquarius. So sorry. The moon is going into Aquarius. It is going into Uranus's sign as well as Saturn's sign. There can be news with the moon going into Aquarius. I want to be super clear about that. Communication, effects, a business plan, a concept, from the past coming back around, a person from the past coming back around. But it's like them coming back around has a long-term effect because, again, we have a Mercury Cazimi building. It's not exact yet. It's not going exact into the afternoon. But, whenever we go through parts of this vibration, there's so much of it that's speaking to past things coming back around, or rethinking, or reshaping, or restructuring, or redoing. But now that the moon is in Aquarius, that's a fixed sign, long-term energy. Some of what will be communicated in the first part of the week, in the clarity, will have long-term effects, a long-term result, a long-term purpose that doesn't have to be bad. But whenever we get into fixed air, that's what Aquarius is, there's logic here. But whenever we get into fixed, it's long term. So a long term vibration, a long term revealing, a long term policy change, a long term rule. There's something here that it's coming to light as the day progresses. This is just one element now that the moon is in Aquarius. Okay, moving this along. After the moon goes into Aquarius, it is going to start a sextile to Venus. This is going to be felt the most exact between 12 and 2 p.m. So I got it at 1:30. Here is the moon, 1 degree, 43 minutes. Here is Venus, 1 degree, 34 minutes. It was closer to 1 p.m. that they went exact. But you can see it right here. Venus is retrograde. We're going back over something. We're rethinking something. We are looking at how something has changed in the aesthetic. And we're commenting like, oh, I didn't realize you were dyeing your hair. You were cutting your hair, that you were rethinking something, that you wanted to change something in your appearance. Some of you are going to be in a meeting and they'll be like, we thought we would do all of these things, but now we realize we don't like the look of it. Or you did do all of these things. And again, we're kind of considering a rethinking of the look of it. We want to tinker with it a little bit. And there is so much about Venus that can speak to the aesthetic change. For some people, it's going to be like you're going to lunch somewhere and it's going to a restaurant you haven't been to in a long time. So you're having a dish you haven't had in a long time. This isn't heavy energy, but considering Venus is coming back around and about ready to back into something, there can be something from previous months, most specifically like early February, that's coming back around right here, because that was the last time Venus was right here. Like, we set a plan in motion, we confirmed certain things back at the end of January, early February, just kind of putting the human effect in there. And now something's coming back around and it's going to either be revised, reshaped, redone, or we're reviewing it again. So the coming back around is real important. Okay. Now, at 2:47 p.m. Central Standard Time, so I'm going to bump this to 2:30, Mercury Cazimi. We're really close right here. You can see it. Here's the sun, 4 degrees, 24 minutes. Here's Mercury, 4 degrees, 25 minutes. Like, they're right on top of each other. The retrograde Cazimi. That is something coming back around, coming back into focus, coming back into light. The restructured, the reshaping, the rethinking, the redoing, the revealing. Anytime a planet comes into the conjunction to the sun, we can expect something to be revealed. This is most likely a past thing coming back around. And again, there's so much of this week that speaks to being 2 years in the making. This can be a part of that. Now, I'm going to add a layer to this. Right around the time that we go through this Mercury Cazimi, you can see the moon is getting into a conjunction with Pluto. This is actually going to be felt the most exact between 3:30 and 5:30 p.m. So just an hour after this Cazimi happens, we have this moon Pluto stuff. For some people, whatever comes to light is going to be triggering. It is going to be frustrating. It is going to initiate a power struggle because it's Pluto. It is going to have potential elements of fear, considering this moon and Pluto are also in a sextile to that Cazimi. There can be something that is confirming the transformation, the confirming of a fear, the confirming of a frustration, the confirming of something not happening the way that we thought, getting some level of clarity that just confirms, again, a fear or a frustration. Clarity, confirming all these types of information. Somebody's going to be saying something that, again, just kind of like Did you say that to me? Did you really think that you could get away with that? Did you really think that you could say that right now? You can't say those kinds of things to me. I won't put up with it. I won't deal with it. I won't put up with your shit. And it is, again, going to be a part of the push vibration that we're getting into of how we're going to break free of something or how we're going to step into something new, depending on the situation that we're talking about. Okay. Now, after the moon's conjunction to Pluto, after this little Cazimi goes exact, of course, as the evening progresses, the moon will also do exact sextiles to Mercury and the sun, and that's going to be felt the most exact. Moon and Mercury 5 to 7 p.m., moon and sun between 5:30 and 7:30 p.m. So I got this at 6:30. It's going to encapsulate both. The moon sextiles Mercury, the moon's going to sextile the sun. Sextiles are usually of the nature of Venus, but consider Venus as retrograde. Some gentle nudges, some understanding, some of the information coming on, some additional layers to the clarity, because the Cazimi has already gone exact. Whoever we're telling about recent cleared situations or recent revealings, again, there's more than one person involved with the situations at hand. This can still speak to that. And it can also still speak to, well, didn't you say you were scared that they were going to hire a different boss or a different person? Didn't you say that this was going to be something that could potentially happen? Now that we know it's true, what are you going to do? What are you thinking about? What's going to be the change in the dynamic? And again, there's so much of this that speaks to rethinking about something from the past, going back to something from the past or someone from the past. Excuse me. And we're all in different places when it comes to that. For some people, that first part of the week can be kind of a shock to the system that gets us to whatever we need to do by the end of the week. This can kind of speak to that. Okay. Excuse me. After the moon sextile to both Mercury and the sun, we don't have any more direct transits to Monday. Again, we're just kind of going through the motions. We're taking things as best as we can. And now we're going to get into the 25th. We're going to get into Tuesday. The good thing about Tuesday is there's not a whole lot of transits. So for a lot of people, Tuesday will be a carryover to whatever happened on Monday. Now, whenever we do get into different parts of Tuesday, it's more going to happen in the daytime, at least for us here in the States. Sorry about the coughs, guys. I swear I'm at the tail end of all this stuff, so I apologize again. Okay. Between 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, the moon in Aquarius is going to go through a trine with Jupiter. Now, this can be very foretelling, foreshadowing situation. We just had something come to light that is leading into a long-term decision. We've had some kind of revealing that's going to be impacting more than one area. But what I'm looking at is Jupiter rules Pisces. He is the traditional ruler of Pisces. And both Venus and Mercury are about to backtrack into Pisces this week. Neptune is wrapping up its trip through Pisces this week. We can be offering information to the doctor, the guru, the teacher, seeking out the doctor, the guru, the teacher to understand, well, what should I do next? What should I try to do? What can I do to fix it? What can I do to heal it? What can I do to take a different step? And there is parts of this week that really does speak to fix something and heal something, but for a whole different set of reasons that's going to be the most exact on Wednesday. And that is actually Chiron's square to Mars. Chiron being that wounded healer vibration. Part of what we're going to be dealing with as the first part of the week is like what we can do to solve a situation. But for us to find that solution, sometimes we need guidance. Some of us, we will be the one giving guidance. Well, if I was in your shoes, this would be the step that I take. This would be the thought that I take. This would be the concept that I take. This would be the direction that I take. You can take that a couple different ways. Now, the other transit that's going to go exact on Tuesday happens between 4:38 and 5:04 p.m. Central Standard Time. And this is going to be Pluto's sextile to Mercury, and it's the second one. The first one actually happened back at the beginning of the month. Now we have Mercury retrograde. So we have Pluto here, 3 degrees, 27 minutes. Here's Mercury, 3 degrees, 28 minutes. You can see it's really close. It's fine. I'm not doing it by minute. Doing it by hour is enough. Now, considering we've had all of these little sextiles to Pluto that started at the last week, we had all of these little Pluto things that were kind of coming through. One of the things that I talked about last week was triggering something that could produce a fear that brings a power struggle to the surface. Part of whatever we can be dealing with at the first part of the new week can speak to whatever things have just been revealed over the last week. Things that we need to change, things that we need to work on, how we're going to overcome a fear, how we can overcome a frustration. This can have to do with some kind of communication coming back around as to a plan, a policy, a concept, a mentality. More of it can also speak to whatever just got revealed the day before with the Mercury Cazimi and how we're dealing with a frustration, how we're dealing with the fear, how we're dealing with the trauma, how we're dealing with something. And given again, we have this Chiron Mars square that's building. It's not exact yet. It speaks to the concept of how we can fix something, how we can overcome, how we can break through a fear. Some of us are going to have an old fear coming back around based off, again, whatever has come to light. And I need people to be prepared still for those little bits of triggers. But again, those triggers have been necessary for us to understand what we're going to be stepping into more at the end of the week. And I'm not just talking about this one per trigger. I'm talking about the last few weeks too. Okay. Again, there was only 2 direct transits to Tuesday. The moon's trine to Jupiter, Pluto's sextile to Mercury. And again, this is the second one. The first one happened back at the beginning of March, roughly around March 4th, 5th timeframe. Okay. Moving this along. We're going to keep it going. We're going to get into Wednesday. Now, whenever we get into Wednesday, the first transit that's going to happen is happening right after midnight. And that is when the moon is going to go through its sextile to Chiron. Chiron and Mars are building into a square. Therefore, the moon is in conjunct Mars. So this is talking about the fix, how we're going to handle something, how we're going to approach something. But whoever we're talking to, if like either they don't see eye to eye with the other side, or they're not familiar with the other side, they don't know what they don't know because of the in conjunction to Mars. Now, whenever it comes to like T-square energy, like we can see both sides of the other party. This energy, we only are helping one side. We're only connected to one side. We either do not believe, do not support, or we don't know at all the other person at play. We're not about that. We're not tied to that side. Some of us are going to get to the late parts of Tuesday, human effect, early parts of Wednesday, where we're trying to talk to somebody about how they're going to handle something, how they're going to fix something, what they're going to do to get over a situation. But we are only supportive of one side. We either do not care about the other side, we don't know the other side, or we don't believe the other side. We don't support them, however that part's going. Human effect is, again, that could be late parts of Tuesday. For other people, that is going to be a part of Wednesday. Considering we're going to have our full Chiron Mars square on Wednesday, as I'm continuing, this is going to happen. It's also going to happen in the afternoon, just to be clear. The human effect could be like Wednesday morning. Okay. Let's keep it moving. Speaking of Wednesday morning, between 4:30 and 6:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. So here's the moon, 24 degrees, 39 minutes. It is going to go through a square with Uranus. Now you can see this right here. Moon square Uranus. But the moon is in Uranus's sign. So it's like, hey, buddy, do we want to go try this? Do we want to go do this? Do we want to go change this? Do we want to go shake some things up? Uranus, again, that breaker of chains, that unexpected vibration, that technological vibration, the shaking up the normal things. But what I'm looking at is Uranus is hosted by Venus, and Venus is now at that 0 degree mark. This is the last full day of Venus being in Aries. So, but something about that moon square to Uranus can be like, hey, do you want to go back somewhere? Do you want to do something different? Do you want to change that up? Do we want to try something else? Do we want to break it apart and go back to the drawing board? For some people, you're going to be breaking something up and going back to the drawing board. Now, considering after the moon goes through that square to Uranus, the moon is going to go void, which means for parts of Wednesday morning, there's not going to be a whole lot going on, or a whole lot that feels like it can take big steps. I feel like we set the stage for something early on Wednesday morning, and it just kind of encompasses our entire day. And some things about Wednesday will not be planned. If you had them on the schedule for Wednesday, it's like the earlier parts of the day, like, oh, yeah, we're not going to go do that appointment that we thought we were going to do. We're going to go do this instead. This is going to happen instead. We're going to have to deal with this instead. And again, it's going to be like pushing a mindset, a mentality, an idea backwards into a rethinking, reshaping how we fix, how we heal concept. So there's layers to the mental energy as we go through Wednesday. Now, let's get into the afternoon. I'm going to bump this to 2:30. Okay. Chiron is going to square Mars, the most exact, between 1:56 and 3:17 p.m. Central Standard Time. This is what I thought was interesting when I was meditating on this. These two are going to go through their exact square. And during this time, the moon is going to change signs. So you can see the moon right here is at 29 degrees, 59 minutes. He goes into Pisces at 2:32. I'm not bumping it by minute. I'm going off of this concept right here. Once the moon goes into Pisces, there's something about this energy that speaks to how we're going to heal. Emotional things coming to the surface, emotional things arising that requires support. And whenever we add that layer of Chiron's square to Mars, Chiron is in Mars's sign. Mars is in the moon sign. We understand that something cannot continue. And whatever we are going to start working on, whatever we're going to start focusing on as the last half of the week takes shape, requires an element of nurturing. How we fix the situation requires nurturing. It requires care. It requires certain situations of healing. And once the moon goes into Pisces, there's something about the emotional vibration that needs to come to the surface. Because whenever we look at the water signs, I always compare Pisces to the ocean. We never know quite where the bottom is going to be and how deep things are. And when we get into those depths, what we're going to find. There's something deep, deep, deep down that needs to come out. For some, it's a belief, the moon in Pisces. For some, it is healing, the moon in Pisces. For some, it is emotional disruptions being forced to the surface because this is the only way we heal. But once we can recognize this level of healing, once we can recognize this fix, once we can address the wound, it can allow for something else to take shape, given the way the rest of this week is going to go and what it takes us into once we get into April. So the moon in Pisces is going to be very, very important because remember, we should be having a Pisces eclipse right now. We're not. We're going to have an Aries eclipse. But the moon in Pisces is still taking the last months of energy of bringing things to the surface of what we need to heal, what we're trying to fix, where the wounds have been. Okay. Again, the moon's going to go into Pisces at 2:32 p.m. And as the day progresses, like there's going to be emotions brought to the surface, again, making us rethink what we're doing, the concepts of where we're going, the changes of what we have made, where we're putting our vibration, where we're putting our energy. And it is going to really have us in a state of confusion for many. And it's, again, a state of very odd mental energy all throughout the rest of Wednesday going into Thursday. So I want to just keep going with this. Okay. There's some indirect transits that we're going through also. I don't want to get stuck on those. I want to stay consistent with the direct transits. Now we're going into Thursday. The moon's going to be in Pisces all day long. And the first thing lunation wise that's going to happen actually happens at 3:41 a.m. Central Standard Time. So I'm bumping this to 4:30. And this is when Venus is going back into Pisces. We're going back to an old topic, to an old concept, to an old belief, to an old thought. Something that we started to do might not necessarily continue once we get to the middle of the week. Something that we started to do over a month ago, we might start to rethink and go in a different way now, realizing that that idea, that concept, or whatever just isn't going to work. And the only way we can fix something is by taking a step back. Venus going back into Pisces, Venus going back into another sign. Now, between 7:47 and 8:27 a.m. Central Standard Time, so I'm just going to bump this to 8:30 because that's going to be fine. Oops. This is when Venus is going to have her second conjunction to Neptune. Now, the first one happened back at the beginning of February. And it was right before, well, late January, early February, right before Venus, of course, moved into Aries. So we've had this already. But Venus is now retrograde. Neptune's gearing up to change signs. We're days away from it. But Venus is going backwards in something. And she's rethinking, repurposing an old concept and an old way of thinking. Now, one of the things that I said in the intro was that once we got into a key part of the later parts of this week, we're going to really feel the difference between that Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde. And this is where I think that starts. And for basically, I'm going to say the next 48 hours, it's not quite 48 hours, but still, we're going to feel the energetic difference between Venus's retrograde and Mercury's retrograde, because we're going to have them for just a moment in two separate signs. Venus now in Pisces, and we're going to be wrapping up Mercury retrograde in Aries. And there will be an internalized energy for many, just as well as the potential of external energy also, of something that we've already committed to, we've already thought about, we've already worked on, we've already presented, we've already been a part of, that now we're coming back to, but we're coming back to it in a different way, with more knowledge, with more insight. Some things that we committed to over the course of the last few months, we are no longer going to stay committed to in the same way. And some of us are going to be like wrestling in our heads, like, well, if I do this, then I can't do this. And but I really want to do this, but I can't do that if this needs to happen. And there's so much confusion. There's so much confusion. And we get into this part of the week. I feel like Thursday, Friday, the confusion is just going to be so overwhelming for some people. The effects of something are going to take over for some people. And the effects, again, speak to that Neptune vibration. For some people, it's going to be an inspirational stuff. For other people, there is going to be this sense of nostalgia. And if there was going to be a random time of somebody from the past trying to come back around, whoo, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I'm so serious. Okay. Venus's conjunction to Neptune. Now, if we're dealing with the health stuff during this part, I'm not a fan of it. And this can be like the spread of an infection, because again, Neptune's not very clear about sometimes how he impacts our immune system. And this can be like an unsuspecting type of infection happening that we might not even catch for a few days because of Venus being retrograde. And again, we're in this limbo time of separation where Venus and Mercury retrograde are in two different signs. So we can be focused in one area and missing something in another, and vice versa. We can be missing something completely because we got so hyper focused on this and we blew something off, not realizing how important whatever we're blowing off is. Okay. Now, going into the afternoon. Now, Venus, Neptune, we're in this energy all day long, all day long. Now, whenever we get to the afternoon, between 3 and 5 p.m., I've got it at 3:30 now, the moon in Jupiter's sign is going to make a square to Jupiter. Now, This can be a push, this can be tension, this can be an argument. We can need some level of support in some way. We can be talking to the doctor, the guru, the teacher, and we can have one frame of mind. Or this can be where the doctor tells us something else has popped up that we were not expecting, that we were not planning for. And again, with that Venus Neptune stuff, that's going to be intense. Because if we're dealing with something that's going to require levels of treatment, you might not be expecting that. And I know some of you guys are dealing with that right now because you're in my DMs. I love you. I'm not complaining. My DMs are there for a reason. There can be something about the potential of infections and spreads and stuff like that when it comes to this time frame. I am not wishing for them. I am preparing you in case they happen. For others, you're going to be, again, talking to someone about the potential of a treatment and not being able to completely make a decision at this time of whether you want to commit to something or not. That can be a part of this too. Okay, moving along. After the moon square to Jupiter, whenever it comes to Thursday, there's no more direct transits. We're going to keep it going. We're going to get into Friday, and Friday is got so many transits, and they're mostly lunar transits, but still there's a lot going on. So first things first, between 2:30 and 4:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, so I'm going to put this at 2:30, the moon is going to hit a trine to Mars. Now remember, Mars just had a square to Chiron. Mars is going to be hosting this upcoming eclipse that we're going to have on Saturday, the very next day. And over the weekend, Neptune is going to move into Aries. So for some people, there is an emotional understanding of the consideration of all the things that we're trying to launch, that we're trying to nurture, that we're trying to bring forward. This does not feel heavy per se. But what I also think is interesting is once we get into the 28th, we're also starting Saturn sextile to Uranus. It's starting. It doesn't actually go exact until April, so I haven't put a whole lot of energy behind this yet. But this is one of those things that it impacts the collective. So I'll talk about it a little bit at the closing, more when I do the April month ahead forecast, just to be clear. But we have this vibration that speaks to timely shifts, timely excitement, timely unexpected vibration. And we're kind of right at the start of it as we go into this weekend. Okay. Now, when the moon hits the trine to Mars, there is emotional understanding, emotional nurturing. There's those final rounds of things in our head of what we need to take care of. What's the process again of how we fix something, how we overcome, how we're going to work through things. As the morning progresses between 5 and 7 a.m., so I got this now at 5:30, the moon is going to make a conjunction to Saturn. You can see that right here. If I actually go ahead and bump this to 6:30, not only do you see the moon Saturn conjunction, but you can also start to see the moon starting its sextile to Uranus. This feels like an activation, by the way. An activation whenever it comes to the elder, responsibility, authority, rules, law, a policy of some sort. Considering so many of you, you're going through changes in your workplace, just as much as we're seeing stuff in the big picture collective energy. Like there's something coming from the authority figure, from the boss, a law, something coming into play that is going to be a part of the initiative shakeup given the Uranus vibration. So I want people to be clear, like there's going to be some pushes of something that are going to be exciting for some, but they're going to speak to rumbles. I want to say liberation right now, but that's not necessarily the right thing. But I guess I need to say it. Rumbles to liberation, even if we don't necessarily initially understand that. Rustles towards independence and things along of those lines, because I'm thinking of the Uranus qualities. Okay. I'll talk more about the Saturn Uranus again, like I said, a little bit at closing, but more so when we get into April. Okay, moving along. The moon is going to make a conjunction next to the North Node. That's going to go the most exact between 10:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. So I got this at 11:30. You can see they're right on top of each other. Here's the North Node, 27 degrees, 25 minutes. Here's the moon, 27 degrees, 26 minutes. So we're like just a minute past the exact. You can see it very tightly right here. The head of the dragon, an idea, something about our mind, something about what we are feeling set to have a certain fated energy coming through, a timely fated energy, that type of vibration, some kind of spark and idea, again, because we've had some stuff from the past coming back around. There's this surreal energy all around us, and this can be very internalized of right place, right time, exactly where I need to be, exactly where I'm supposed to be. And a lot of people, whether you like it or not, wherever you're at next weekend is exactly where you're supposed to be. Good, bad, or ugly. Okay, moving along. Next thing that's going to happen is going to happen between 1:30 and 3:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, and that is when the moon is going to hit the conjunction to Venus. You can see that right here. What also starts to happen in this same time frame is between 2:30 and 2:30 and 4:30 is the moon is also going to start its conjunction to Neptune. So you can see right here at this 2:30 mark, the moon is right in the middle. It's just past the conjunction to Venus. It is just before it gets to a conjunction to Neptune. And there's something here that can speak to whatever happened the day before, whatever we're looking at the aesthetic changes of, whatever we're trying to work through, whatever we're trying to display, whatever we're trying to encompass. Some of you, if you've had somebody from the past coming back around, it's like telling your girlfriend going, you will not believe who just called me. You will not believe who just showed up. You will not believe who was at my job today. You will not believe, like, you, some people won't, other people will. There can be things about the aesthetic, things about the view, the beauty, Venus, but also the Neptune energy of like the mesmerizing, the hopeful, that level of energy whenever it comes to like the spiritual, but also the beliefs, the lies, the fraud, deception, all of those vibrations can speak to this here. And if you do have someone come up back around next week, I would really question the things that they say, because some of us are going to deal with some people that they ain't telling the truth. That's going to get real interesting. Okay. Now, at 3:37 p.m. Central Standard Time, so I'm just going to bump this 2 hours, the moon is going to go into Aries. And as soon as the moon goes into Aries, it's going to start its conjunction to Mercury. Now, the moon in Aries, as soon as the moon goes into Aries, which that's going to start Friday evening, the entire weekend, we're in eclipse energy, just like what we were 2 weeks ago, whenever the moon went into Virgo. The entire time that the moon is in Aries, we are in eclipse vibration. Really, as soon as the moon goes past that conjunction to the North Node earlier on Friday, we're in the eclipse vibration. I'm telling you again, whatever starts to unfold over the course of next weekend, the 28th, the 29th, and the 30th, while the moon is going through Aries, you are exactly where you are supposed to be, whether you like it or not. We are going into something that is starting a new phase, starting a new chapter, starting a new dynamic, starting part of the new normal. Even though in the moment it's not going to feel like the new normal, but it's going to be a part of the new normal. There's something about that vibration of starting something. And sometimes the North Node, as much as it can be the head of the dragon of I will consume, I desire, I will control, I will have, give me, I'm a greedy baby. A lot of the times the North Node can have to do with fate. It's time for something new to come through, given that, again, Neptune's about to go into Aries. But as soon as we go into that eclipse vibration, and that's where this is, when the when the moon goes into Aries, we are exactly where we are supposed to be at that time, going through next weekend. And whatever is starting to come around, come to the surface, take shape, whether you like it or not, it's exactly what's supposed to be happening. I know that sounds real woo-woo. I know it does. That is what my gut's telling me. That's what my intuition is telling me. That's what everything is telling me. So this is what we're dealing with. You don't like it, you don't like it. I get it. Okay. Now, again, as soon as the moon goes into Aries, it is starting a conjunction to Mercury. And what I said whenever we started Thursdays, there's something about this 48-hour period of Thursday, Friday, going into Saturday, that we're going to really feel the difference between Venus's retrograde right then and Mercury's retrograde, because they're going to be for a moment in two different signs. When the moon hits a conjunction to Mercury, there's a confirmation There's a confirmation that we're going back to something, we're rethinking something, we're redrawing something, we're repurposing something. And again, whatever we are dealing with in this vibration, for some of us, it is a few months in the making. For others, it is up to 2 years in the making of taking shape, of going in this direction, of being thought up. Now, whenever the moon hits the conjunction to Mercury, Mercury's still in pop-off vibration. And some of us might be a little mad about the fact that we got to go back to something, or that something's not going the way that we thought, or something's popping off in a different way. And there can be some tension right here. There can be some frustration right here. There can be some things that was not necessarily clear. There was confusion throughout the day, things not making sense throughout the day. And it's like we get to a little point in the afternoon and we're like, will you friggin' make up your mind? What's wrong with you? That can happen too. And when the moon hits this conjunction to Mercury, it feels very timely of just like, will you make up your mind? Do you want it here? Or do you want it here? Do you want it this color? You want it this color? What are you doing? Are you sure this is going to work? Are you sure we're doing the right thing? It can get a little heightened. It can happen. It's not that we're meaning to be mad or pissy or whatever. Just remember, there's some of the action here can also have a little bit of tension in the vibration. Okay, moving along. Now, as we get into the evening time, between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. Central Standard Time, so I got this at 9:30, Pluto is going to sextile the moon. Pluto is pushing something. Pluto has an idea. We are either confirming a fear, confirming a concept, considering we've had all of these little hits to Pluto over the course of the last week and a half now. It's been a week and a half. Something here is either like helping us overcome a fear. We're talking about the potential of something. We're talking about the power struggle. We're talking about what has changed, what has been reshaped, what has been brought into focus, what we are thinking about, what we are working with. It doesn't have to be the heaviest of energies, but it can speak to a trauma, a fear, a struggle, encompassing part of the internalized vibration of what we're dealing with. Now, after the Pluto moon sextile in the evening time, we don't have any more transits to Friday. So we're going to keep this going. We're going to get into the 29th, and the 29th is going to be the eclipse. Now, the eclipse is going to go the most exact at 5:59 a.m. Central Standard Time. So I got this at 5:30. Here's the sun, here's the moon. It actually goes to direct at 9 degrees. And I want people to understand something. I've talked about this 9-degree mark before whenever it comes to Aries. That's where Mercury went retrograde. It's right next to where Venus went retrograde. For some people, whatever the next level and next launching is of what we're dealing with because of the last few months, and for some people, it's going to be a mix of the last 2 years and the last few months. There's something solidifying in this eclipse. And some of us had a delay back at the Virgo eclipse that's not going to be delayed anymore. And we're going to finally, again, be able to work on something, take shape, and deal with something differently. This is that new moon in Aries. And I'll put more emphasis on it whenever I talk about it, in the episode later this week. Now, whenever it comes to the afternoon, after that eclipse, our next thing that's going to happen is going to happen between 3:30 and 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I get this to 4:30. Here's the moon in Aries hitting a sextile to Jupiter. What we're also dealing with is Mercury is about to go back into Pisces. It's about to go into Jupiter's sign. Venus just went back into Jupiter's sign. There's something over the last few days that has kind of pushed into shape, stepped into the forefront, came to light. And now we're seeing the benefit, moon sextile Jupiter. We're expressing some level of excitement of how something has turned out okay, or how something is coming about, or we're expressing some type of energy that speaks to an interruption because Mercury is about to go back into Pisces. So this can be expressing like something to the doctor, the guru, the teacher of an interruption, given Mercury about to go back, like I said. Now, Mercury's not going to re-enter Pisces until the evening time, and that is going to happen at 9:19 p.m. Central Standard Time. And as soon as he goes into Pisces, he's conjunct Neptune. These two are having a direct conjunction at the very last degree and last minute of Pisces. And then they're going to swap places. Mercury is retrograding back into Pisces. Whenever we get into Sunday, Neptune is going to go into Aries. So this is like a passing of the baton. This is a switch up of something. This is a confirmation of one thought process while also illuminating something else moving forward, taking something else forward. There can be confusion, there can be lies, there can be fraud, there can be deception. And if you again had somebody come back over these last few days, it's like questioning their story in some ways, and be like, I've had time to think about what you said, and I don't believe you. And this is why I don't believe you. And it's like a final karmic test of, oh, yeah, I can't do that way anymore. I can't step backwards this way anymore. I won't think about it this way anymore. Moving forward, this is how I feel. This is what I believe. This is the right thing to do. This is what I will be doing from now on. I will not accept less. I will not take a step back. I will only worry about what's best for me. Because again, we're in that transitional energy where Mercury did go backwards, but that's that rethinking energy. But Neptune's about to go forwards. And by no longer accepting less, by no longer accepting the old, by no longer accepting certain lies, it takes a belief, it takes an energy forward going into Sunday. So let's talk about Sunday. Let's keep it going. Let's get into the 30th. Now, the first thing that is going to happen are lunar transits. And that's going to be between 2 and 4 a.m. Got this down at 3:30. Sorry. The moon is going to make a conjunction to Chiron. So you can see that right here. Chiron, 22 degrees, 12 minutes. Here's the moon, 22 degrees, 34 minutes. Confirming the healing, confirming the wound, confirming something. There is a meeting here. For a lot of people, this will be internalized energy. The reaction of how we heal, how we nurture what we're doing forward. Between 3:30 and 6 a.m., so we're still in this energy, the moon is also going through that square with Mars. Now, what's interesting is the moon and Mars, they're in mutual reception, and they have been the entire time that the moon has been in Aries. The type of understanding about our passion, our desire, our drive, the thing that we want to move forward internally is setting in. Something is setting in for us. And at 6:58 a.m. Central Standard Time, so I'll just bump this to 7:30, Neptune moves into Aries. Now, here's the deal. When Neptune moves into Aries, again, I said this in the intro, I'm saying it again now, there's no big dynamic transit connected to this. Even more so, the moon is void once Neptune moves into Aries. So I really feel like Sunday, for a lot of people, it is going to be the internalized energy shining through, coming through, the downloads for those of us that are spiritually susceptible and energetically susceptible, the downloads just feeding in through our crown chakra and coming through the epiphanies. So much energy is coming through right here, but it doesn't have a physical outlet. So this feels internal. The majority of Sundays feels internal until we get to the evening time. So I'm going to keep this going. At 3:16 p.m. Central Standard Time, so I'm going to bump this to 3:30. Boom, there's that. The moon goes into Taurus. The moon is now in Venus's sign. Venus has recently retrograded back into Pisces. There could be something, again, about other people, about our loved ones, about an effect that we are rethinking. Understanding by going back towards something different, something else can be setting in that can have a long-term effect, a transitional energy that will have a long-term effect because the moon is in a fixed sign. And as we get into the evening time, our last and final transit happens between 8 and 10 p.m. So I got this now at 8:30. And that's when Pluto is going to square the moon. A fear being overcome, a transition being impressed upon, a rethinking or a reshaping to get rid of a fear, to no longer deal with a frustration. There can be a fear being set in because something from the past that we thought we weren't going to have to worry about is coming back around. And that again is because Venus is retrograde now, going back into a different sign. Given that Mercury is also gone backwards and has now re-entered mutual reception to Jupiter, we can have those exchanges of knowledge that are very dominant right here, that again can still be coming through that internalized like energy in our mind, the downloads and stuff coming through right here. But the first potential physical thing that triggers something about the new change that is setting in. And whatever that new change is, there's something very fueled about what we need to take care of, what we're willing to nurture, what we believe to be true and be righteous moving forward. That if we nurture this the right way, that it's going to empower us even more so coming the weeks to months ahead, the showcasing of a vibration. Now, some people are going to be fueled by lies and fraud and deception because it's Neptune. For others, if it's going to be belief. For some, it's going to be delusions, the dreams of grandeur, and all the potential of something. But it can still fuel us. That doesn't always have to be bad. Some delusions can be manifested into something true. Others are going to be dealing with the effect of something. And there will be things that speak to health next weekend. I know it's going to impact some of you. And I do feel like for some people, Neptune going into Aries is going to encompass and force some kind of new level of treatment. And I'm very specific to say Pisces risings and Aries risings. You need to be clued in to how you're feeling next weekend and every day this week going into next weekend. And don't take anything for granted, because you guys are going to be feeling this as an individual. There's a rethinking, reshaping, redoing, nostalgia, while also a launching, a supportive vibration of what will be the new. Now, the thing about that new is it's not going to just run out the gate, boom, yeah. Okay, it's not a horse race. We're not waiting for that kind of buzzer. For some people, it will be an inspiration, and it will take the rest of the retrogrades to get clear on what that needs to be and what that's going to look like. And that's why I'm still saying, like, we're not going to understand the new normal until we start to wake up in that second half of April and go into May and June and all the rest of the freaking year. Like, we're not going to completely understand the new normal quite yet, but we will. And the one thing that if you've listened to my Meditative Rant video, I didn't say this per se as clear as I'm about to say it now, is every time Neptune's in an Aries, or not Aries, but in a fire sign, the inflation element is going to come through. But this inflation requires nurturing, ambition, and drive. And I think it's fantastic for people that are going in a new avenue in their careers or in their goals, or if they're trying to do something different in their education. I just don't like it for new relationships. Wait a few more weeks. Give me that. It's almost April 13th. It's not that far away. Some of you didn't listen at all and you've gotten to the relationships, and then you keep asking, well, what's going to happen? I don't know. We're going to figure it out together. We'll see how you guys feel 6 months from now. There's a fueling internalized by the end of the week. And with all of those transits going between the lunar transits, there's a busyness next weekend. You guys already know mine. I've already talked about it. Going into that event next weekend. So there's a busyness to that. And well, some of you are going to be like little pinballs, ping, 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 ping. bouncing around, doing so many different things, trying to take something forward, trying to build something up. And then once you do just like that small element in front of you, something part of you goes, I want to do this all the time. I want to do this as a business. I want to do this in a different way. I want to try this over and over again, but building up more and more each time. I want to do this for myself. I don't want to do this for another person. And some of the fueling in that belief system is going to have enterprise to it. It is going to have ambition to it. Entrepreneurial level ambition. I did not say that word right. I'm pretty sure I goofed up a couple words this episode. There's a fueling that's going to start to set in by the end of the week. And as we get into that later part of the week, the downloads, I can't express that one enough. The mental vibration and the mental energy of what's going to be coming through, where we're going to want to focus and look at things moving forward. It's going to be different than where we were months ago. And for a lot of people, wherever we're going to be putting our focus by the end of the week, whatever that's going to be, that surreal thing of flooding our senses of coming in, whatever that is, it's exactly what we're supposed to be looking at this time. It's a part of that faded vibration of what we're stepping into next. Because whenever we look at the sign of Aries, we're talking about the first sign of the zodiac. That's the first, that's the start, that's the new. Growth comes from this, expands from this. Some will be volatile, some will be ambitious. It's going to be different for everybody. There'll be a lot of actions and reactions that are going to come through. But the internalized energy, the inspiration of that energy that can be coming through next weekend can be so loud and speak volumes of direction and focus moving forward. Fate is funny. I rarely talk about fate. This week has an element of fate tied to it. An unsheathing and uncovering, a revealing of direction and path. And I really do feel like wherever we're at next weekend, whether that's sitting in your living room, but you see the right TED Talk on your television that makes you think, I want to go back to school and do this, or you're in the right event and you're surrounded by the right people that just speaks to your heart's content and you're like, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. Or you're seeing your kid at their first soccer match, just going off with the idea of that. And you see the joy coming in their face and you're just like, oh my God, you're going to do this for the next 20 years. This is what's going to put you through college. You're exactly where you're supposed to be, doing what you're supposed to be at that time. And whatever's unfolding within you, around you, for you in that moment, positive or negative, because I can't promise sunshine and rainbows for everybody, is exactly what's supposed to be happening at that time. Okay. Okay. I love and appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for the support. Thank you for all of the shares. Thank you for listening. I do appreciate every single one of you. I will talk to everybody very, very soon. And if you're wanting to book your one-on-ones, again, this is the last full week to do it at the discounted rate. So I'll talk to everybody very, very soon. Subscribe.